DIIV are a shoegaze band from Brooklyn, often hailed as the contemporary torchbearers of the genre. In 2024, they released their fourth album, Frog in Boiling Water, to universal acclaim and have been touring it relentlessly since. I sat down with the band to chat concept albums, being a band in the streaming age, and more. So I'm James. I run a music blog called Hey You Listen to This. In case anybody who's watching is unfamiliar with you guys, could you introduce yourselves?
Hey you, we are the band DIIV.
If you could describe your sound in 3 words, how would you describe it?
What was it? MDMA, THC, and I'm just playing. That was our bio when we first started.
Really?
What's the word for when you rise up to heaven?
Ascension?
Yeah, ascension. That's my word.
Man, that's a good one. What's going on over here?
We can cut that out. Leave it in?
Yeah, leave it. We're leaving it in.
This usually happens much later in the interview. Yeah.
Orange.
Orange.
I was gonna say purple.
Not a lot of people tell me colors, so that's cool. You guys have been hailed as kind of the torchbearers of this next wave of shoegaze. I'm wondering what separates DIIV from the legacy of My Bloody Valentine, Slowdive, and these other former forebearers.
We're much worse.
Sonically, what distinguishes you from the bands that have come before?
I think that a realization that a lot of musicians have, like sometimes the easy way or the hard way, is that like that music is like unrecreatable, and so it's impossible like not to distinguish yourself from them because you can't recreate their music.
While being a shoegaze band at your core, you've not shied away from incorporating other elements that sort of subvert some of the conventions of the genre. I'm wondering what sort of music outside of the shoegaze world inspires you, and sonically, what do you try and incorporate?
Good question.
I don't know. I almost exclusively listen to music that doesn't have words. I like instrumental music. I like ambient music. I think that we each kind of bring our own taste to the table, and there's this kind of like push and pull when we're writing music of trying not to lean too hard in any one direction.
Are they a key inspiration?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I want to talk about Frog in Boiling Water. I'm interested conceptually in what that means to you guys as a band.
If you spend any time looking into the state of the world right now, and then you like look around at people just kind of chilling, having fun, you want to just smack people and be like, wait, hold on guys, like we're literally boiling to death right now. Like, but then like everybody kind of knows that already, so it's weird, and so we're kind of like consciously boiling to death maybe, but yeah, that's basically the vibe. The album itself is sort of like seeing the world through different people's eyes, like different types of people's eyes. And that's the one thing that brings it all together, is that we're fucked.
Were there particular perspectives you were trying to capture, or was it more of a universal commentary?
It didn't start out that way. It was just, we realized that's what was happening. Like each song sort of was a different perspective on roughly the same idea. So at the end, it was like, what is the thing that ties all this together? And yeah, it's the end of the world as we know it.
Do you feel you've made something like that before? Or is this a real deviation from your prior material?
I don't know, I would say DIIV was kind of that too.
A little bit, but I feel like Frog had a more of an overarching like theme or language that everything got filtered through. DIIV was like, a lot of the songs were about something similar. I think too, Frog ended up being so like thematic and visual outside of the music, and that I feel like is what really makes it feel like a concept record more than like DIIV did.
Describe that language that Frog is filtered through.
I mean, kind of what Bailey said, end of the world, kind of late stage capitalism, kind of like dead internet, and also kind of like weird new type of nostalgia that we experience for a time that is actually not very long ago, and is actually kind of technologically similar to where we are now, but it also feels very far away. That's how I think about the internet stuff that we were referencing, at least.
Those themes of sort of late-stage capitalism are particularly pertinent now, but seem almost prescient when you guys were putting out this record. I feel like it almost foretold this current discourse. I'm curious as to what compelled you as a group to make a project around that in particular.
I think for us, it's kind of like what we're interested in and what we talk about with each other, and that kind of feels like the water we're boiling in, you know what I mean? It was kind of fun to make something that was a little bit more outward looking.
I think a common parallel theme to the late stage capitalism is the sort of commodification of art, particularly that in the streaming era. How has that affected you guys as artists?
I mean, it's kind of like a microcosm of like capitalism at large, or it's like a case study where it's impossible to make really like an honest living. Spotify divesting their money to like, you know, military technology, drone, like, you know, really sinister stuff, and that is like the goal of capitalism, kind of, you know.
Spotify gets a lot of like deserved heat for it right now, but I was actually reading about Godspeed You Black Emperor has an album that came out a while ago, and the liner is like this diagram, or maybe it's the back cover of all the different major label. It's like this tree, and it's all of their connections to like the military industrial complex and everything. So I feel like corporations in America are kind of all interwoven into all of this evil shit that we're talking about. It's just that Spotify is like kind of going like mask off about it, because Daniel Ek is just a fucking crazy person and seems to have like no shame. Whereas with like Warner, Universal, it's like kind of like they're investing, but like secretly, you know?
I think even to call it commodified art is pretty quaint. We've moved past that to where the art is no longer the product. In fact, there is no product. It's like companies are just a vessel for capital to flow through. Mm-hmm. They suck all of the capital out, and then eventually it just kind of dissolves.
The art is like fodder at this point. It's just the library they exploit to sell their algorithmic technology. They're like data companies and data collection companies, and they sell tech, you know, and just like Apple used the music on the phone to sell their phone, you know, the product they're selling isn't the music.
It seems like really hostile conditions for the creation of art. How do you guys adapt to conditions like that?
I mean, we just play live. That's kind of the only avenue for us to make money, which is in a way maybe kind of cool, because it takes some of the pressure off of we can like actually make the album that we want to make. To me, that's the only kind of adaptation besides maybe intentionally trying to write a TikTok hit, which is, I think, a fool's errand, probably.
It's a question we're asking ourselves all the time.
Yeah.
How do we keep going?
You'll have to forgive me for saying DIIV doesn't seem like the kind of band that makes a TikTok hit.
You never know.
Don't listen.
What kind of music are you wanting to make looking ahead?
Secret. But I do think if you look at our 4 albums, like the first 2 are kind of 2 halves of the same coin, and the third and fourth seem like that too, so it feels like it's the beginning of a new chapter, but secret. So
Yeah, we
far.
want to do something different, I think.
Frog wasn't that fun to make. Some moments of it were fun, but I think I guess like to answer to the question, like how do we adapt, part of it is like remembering that like this can be really fun, and so making music that's like fun to make and exciting to us with our like jaded, warped brains is, you know, fun.
Was that the genesis of DIIV? Just getting together because it was fun to make music?
I feel like it was like it was to be like a part of a bigger thing that was happening all around us, I think. The New York underground scene.
This is something I ask all of the people that I interview. I'm interested in what 3 albums you think everybody should listen to.
Music for Airports, Brian Eno.
Yeah, if you want them to fall asleep.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just kidding. I love that album.
I fucking love that album too.
If you're gonna choose like an experimental conceptual record, that's like there's a good argument for that one.
Anything on that label, I feel like, you know, Pavilion of Dreams, amazing.
I love that album so much.
So good.
Not that many people know about that album.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Harold Budd, yeah.
It's Mozart's Requiem Mass.
I can't believe you didn't choose a hip hop record.
I know.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I thought for sure
Well,
it
if
was
it's
gonna be
everybody in
Let's
the
Get Free.
world.
Well, yeah,
that was my first thought, was Dead Prez Let's Get Free. But that's, you know, like, not everybody needs to hear that. What's some dudes?
Not everybody speaks English.
That's why I picked Mozart, because there's no words. And, but, like, classical music still tells a story with the music, you know?
I sang in a choir when I was in university, and we did the Requiem Mass in full.
Yeah.
And like I almost like fainted at the end because it was so intense at the finale.
The person that showed it to me, she had performed it at the Vatican when she was in high school. Wow. And she was like, everybody was just tripping balls.
Yeah. When you perform it, it feels like you're like channeling something like ancient and like intrinsic to being alive. It's very, very strange.
Honestly, I'd probably pick like an Aphex Twin record. I feel like it is like kind of like mind expanding. The new one, Cyro, redefines what music like can be. It seems like there's such an open future if you like took that as a starting point. I've been listening to his catalog a lot for the last few years, and that one always hits. You know, some of them you have to be in this certain type of mood or something. That one always does it for me.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. It's been a real honor to speak to you.
Thanks.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. Thanks.
It's an honor to speak to somebody who has a blog.